So there's a couple of bits of minor Star Trek Picard Season 3 trivia I want to talk about before I get into the meat of today's video. So firstly, I don't know whether you noticed towards the end of episode 8 in the conference room scene where all of the TNG crew are reunited and the new Data comes in. They're all thrilled to see him except Worf. Notice the look of almost disgust and disinterest on Worf's face. He's rolling his eyes, he seems uncomfortable. Apparently this was an improv by Michael Dorn. He believed that Worf wouldn't care for this new Data. As far as he was concerned, Data is dead, and this is just a copy. It's hilarious to watch this scene again because I didn't notice it the first time I saw the episode, and now it's basically the only thing I pay attention to when I watch this scene. This really does go to show that Michael Dorn knows his character very well. And it's consistent with the character because Worf had a similar initial contempt for Ezri Dax on Deep Space Nine when he first met her after the death of his late wife Jadzia Dax. Next up, episode 10, when the Enterprise D is battling the Borg Cube, there's one particular shot where you see some sparks flying on the Enterprise D bridge, and you can see that these are CGI sparks as opposed to the real ones you see on the bridge of the Titan. The reason for this is somewhat humorously...
the carpet.
Yes, the carpet. If they'd used real pyrotechnics on the Enterprise D bridge, they would have burned the carpet, so they used CGI sparks instead. Anyway, with those bits of trivia out of the way, I wanted to talk about terms like member berries, nostalgia bait, and fan service. The first two can be used interchangeably, but I feel like fan service is often erroneously conflated with them. One of the criticisms levelled at Picard Season 3 is that it's guilty of making use of member berries in a few of its episodes. One such example is in episode 6, the episode called The Bounty, when the Titan crew visit the Fleet Museum, and they see some of the most iconic ships from the franchise glory days. We see the Enterprise NCC 1701A, the Defiant from Deep Space Nine. We also see the USS Voyager, and of course we see the Bounty, which was the Klingon bird of prey from Star Trek IV The Voyage Home. Seven of Nine and Jack Crusher take a moment on the bridge of the Titan to sit there and chat about these vessels, and we get some lovingly created CGI shots of them. Now, some critics have slated this as being a cynical attempt to elicit feelings of nostalgia in fans, and to win them over with visual baubles and Star Trek trinkets at the expense of story. This is despite the fact that, in my view, a huge amount of character and story development happens in episode 6. The overall plot is moved on considerably in this installment. I have to respectfully disagree and contest this charge of member berries, because to me, it makes very little sense. I don't think there was any cynical motivation behind the usage of these ships in this episode. If you wanted to emotionally manipulate or nostalgia bait fans in a cynical manner, it would make more sense to throw these visuals into a trailer in order to entice people to watch the episode. The audience was given no indication from the trailer of episode 6 that they were going to see these particular ships in the episode. They could have also put these ships in the first episode of season 3 in order to drag audiences in. But that's not what happened here. Episode 6 is obviously slap bang in the middle of the season. Furthermore, the Fleet Museum actually served two practical purposes. Number one, it reintroduced Geordi LaForge, and number two, it incorporated one of the museum ships into the story. The HMS Bounty's cloaking device was removed and installed in the Titan in order to help them avoid being detected by the Federation. The Fleet Museum wasn't thrown into the episode arbitrarily as some kind of a gimmick. It was crucial to the plot, and furthermore, we would go back to the Fleet Museum in episode 9, Vox, with the reintroduction of the Enterprise D, which of course Geordi had been restoring in Hangar Bay 12. We've also known that the Fleet Museum existed as far back as Star Trek The Next Generation's 6th season episode, Relics.
Constitution class.
Aye. You're familiar with them?
There's one in the Fleet Museum.
And in Star Trek Voyager's series finale, Endgame, Admiral Janeway stated that in the future, Voyager is a museum. So my question is, are we ever allowed to go and visit this Fleet Museum in a Star Trek episode? And if the answer to that question is yes, then what would even the most cynical and critical fan expect to find there except, well, iconic Starfleet ships from Star Trek's history. The reality is, terms like member berries and nostalgia bait have been thrown around far too frequently this season to the point where they've kind of lost all meaning. The idea that Star Trek can't pay homage or tip the hat to its own legacy and mythology is just ridiculous in my view. I looked at that scene between Seven of Nine and Jack very much as a celebration of Star Trek's history and these beloved starships. And as for fan service being a bad thing, this makes no sense, because I have no issue with the concept of fan service. Whenever Star Trek tried to go in a different direction and produce, say for example, a movie aimed at a general cinema-going audience rather than at Star Trek fans, it always failed. Star Trek Insurrection, Star Trek 2009, Into Darkness, Star Trek Beyond, these films were aimed at general movie-going audiences, and they didn't work for that reason. They didn't give long-time Trek fans what they truly wanted. But when the writers and producers of Star Trek give fans what they actually want, unsurprisingly, fans are satisfied, and Star Trek is better for it. Which is why Season 3 of Picard worked so well. Terry Matalas and his team gradually reintroduced the Next Generation characters over the course of the season, not all at once, but slowly over several episodes, and they were fully reunited at the end of Episode 8. And the Enterprise D was brought back for an actual practical purpose. It was believable. They needed the ship because it was disconnected from all the other vessels in fleet formation mode. And so when you finally get that incredible moment at the end of Episode 9, Vox, with the Next Generation crew standing on the bridge of the newly rebuilt Enterprise D, it's just incredible. It gives you goosebumps. And it feels earned. I mean, it's no wonder the fans loved it so much. This is what I call fan service. Fan service is ultimately customer service. Give the customer what they want, and they will be very pleased with your product. Don't give them stuff no one asked for and no one wants to see, like a Star Trek Starfleet Academy series or a Section 31 movie. No fan wants to see that crap. Instead, focus on serving the fans. Serve the customer. I believe that the Star Trek franchise should be produced by fans for fans, and not by people who don't know the franchise and who therefore have no clue what they're doing. More to the point, there should be some kind of Star Trek test that a writer and showrunner have to pass before they get to work on the show, so they can prove their Star Trek credentials. They can prove they know exactly what they're doing. Anyway, that about does it for this episode. I'm looking forward to your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Take care. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.